Conservation Commission meeting,
That would make a difference.
April 26, 2023. Present are Jane,
Jane Raymond.
Evelyn Miller.
Collis Adams, Select Board Representative.
Addie Gale, Planning Assistant.
Jean Walker.
David Neiman.
Susan Tucker.
First on the agenda is proposed 5-lot open space subdivision located at 102 Kenny Road, map 10, lot 10, owned by David Kowalski, zone agricultural. Do we have someone here to present the?
Do.
We do, okay, thank you.
This is this, yeah. Okay, so hold on.
I like your colored map.
Thank you very much. When first I saw it, it kind of reminded me of an Easter egg. For the record, my name is Chris Gaida, and I am a certified wetland scientist and soil scientist with Fieldstone Land Consultants, and we're working with the owner, David Kavanaugh, for this open space subdivision. John LaFave was, I believe, at a conceptual meeting with the planning board, or maybe it was the Conservation Commission, I can't remember exactly which, where there was some comments having to do with the initial proposal, which had another lot on here. So this is a 5-lot, and it was previously 6. So one of those lots has been removed, and some of the other requests and comments having to do with buffer impacts with driveways, things like that, have all been revised so that there are no longer any buffer impacts with the driveways. But I can get to the that whole plan set. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but there's grading and drainage, stormwater management plans for each of the lots and the driveways to make sure that they meet all the town standards. Again, obviously, this is one of those areas that is adjacent to a prime wetland. This area in here also shows up on the Wildlife Action Plan is a highest ranked habitat area. There's obviously a corridor here that wildlife travel along the wetlands through the upland areas. So it actually suits the land here, as far as the open space, is going to be incorporated in that whole area of that highest habitat value. I understand that initially these lots were a little bit farther out and had encroached a little bit into this wetland buffer. And part of the comment was to try to minimize that if possible, and that's been done. So those lots have been moved back so that none of these lots incorporate any of the buffer, so that's all in the open space. And I'm trying to think exactly what any other issues had to do with continuity with the having frontage on the open space lot, which is provided here. There are I think 3 waivers that we're requesting having to do with that the planning board has the discretion to reduce. I believe this is supposed to be a minimum of 100 feet wide access through here. We're asking for a waiver to basically allow for, this is 60 feet right now, I believe, to allow, basically that allows the lots to come back here but still have enough suitable area in here to also be able to get around the buffer areas here with the driveways and enough usable space. It seems reasonable to allow that waiver. You can flip through here if you want, but it's usually I'm guessing that there's some questions and maybe specific questions that might lead to others that I can try to answer along those lines. I'm sure Collis has a few questions.
Do we have some questions?
I'll start with one. So as you mentioned, the request for the waiver for that one strip down to 60 feet is the access. And I noticed when I was looking at the plan that, so that's one access, but then there's also this stippled or slash area running along the bottom.
Yep.
That says access easement to the open space. So
Correct.
that means there would be two accesses.
Right, so
Sure.
that's simply, you know, an additional pedestrian access to maintain, if there were to be a trail network or something, so that you have kind of two means of egress and exiting basically this, so that someone could walk along here, have a trail, you know, have a loop or something that comes along here. I know there's a fairly extensive trail network through some of these other properties here. So that would just allow for another option there.
Okay, I thought maybe was the
Yeah.
purpose, but
Yeah.
I mean, if,
as far as extensive trail network on other properties, nothing official, nothing that's
No,
public or.
no, not that I'm aware of. but-
Because I know there was some confusion with what used to be called Silver Hills back when
Mm.
David
I know I-
McIver was with us, and that's essentially gone, so.
Yeah, I did run into, you know, several folks when we were out there doing the wetlands mapping and talking to them, so it's obviously, I think they were actually the abutters here, but I get the feeling that does get some pretty good use from
Yeah, from
folks
locals,
walking.
yeah.
Collins,
Chris, are any NHB hits?
That's a great question that I don't have an answer for you immediately, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not sure if it was even run, actually, but that's certainly something that's,
Needs to be done.
yeah.
What does that stand for?
Natural
don't-
Heritage Bureau.
Okay.
Threatened and
What is
endangered
it?
What
is it?
NHB, Natural Heritage Bureau,
Oh,
to check for
Yeah.
threatened and endangered plants and animals.
okay.
We are, I mean, went through a couple of, you know, revisions with the owner on this, on lot configurations, and obviously with the wetlands, it was our focus to try to avoid any of those. And I think we've been successful on this option as far as the building areas, you know, would be up front here on these areas, and would not need to cross the wetlands. I'm just kind of feeling through my folder here.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, on the wetlands function value
100
evaluation form, it says endangered species habitat unknown. An unknown, pending NHB.
Yeah, it said the same entry for all 6 wetlands. 'Cause I
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
looked at all those tables.
so I had another, Ken Robinson in our office, is another wetland scientist, was helping me prepare some of this information, and I'm not sure if he ran it, and maybe if it gets, you know, a suspected hit, it might, we have to basically pay, and then it takes a little while for that to come back, so we'll definitely run that if he hasn't yet, and have that as part of the package for the planning board.
Are you planning on having signage along the lots in the backside?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't talk with John specifically about that. I don't know if that was a comment initially, but it's very common to have that, and I don't think there's any issues with having placards along there. Yeah.
Excuse
Jane?
me. Yeah, can you just, where this I'm calling it a cul-de-sac, this,
Mhm.
yeah, where does that go to? Is that Tenney Road?
Yes, it's the end of Tenney Road.
Okay,
So right now, there's a hammerhead.
okay,
The town did get an easement for the construction of that hammerhead a few years ago. With this proposal, a cul-de-sac was a little bit more friendly as far as, you know, the town was concerned with accessing and frontage and things like that.
okay. And then, is it marked on here where there's a footprint for a house and a garage and you know, is
Yeah,
there
so-
room for a house and a garage?
Oh, sure, yep.
On each of these
So
lots?
this is a 100 scale plan, so it's just, it's important to remember that a lot of times everything looks really tight, but at that scale, there's actually a lot more room than it initially looks like. These are the existing homes
4
in
acres,
yellow
5
here.
acres.
There's an existing duplex building, and then there's an existing barn here. I'll call it a barn. I got some good stories, and apparently it used to be a feather factory or something up there. Yeah,
Didn't know feathers were made in factories, I thought they grew on birds.
well, I think they took them off the birds there. Is what happened, and so it's that is actually a kind of a unique aspect of this property, is that in doing the work here, not everything is exactly natural. It looks like this whole area was cleared, you know, by the size of the trees, I'd say probably, boy, it's got to be close to 75, 100 years. But there's evidence kind of along this area where, if you look on like a LiDAR depiction, where a lot of the stuff was stumped, and you know the fields were poked with rocks, so there's kind of it's not a real good, nice wall, but there's almost a line along here where this whole area was cleared, semi-grubbed. There was some work. This wetland area here was definitely, I'll say, helped along with some man-made kind of ditching and drainage. This one is not. This one is pretty much appears to be undisturbed, but this one, they did a little bit of work there as part of that factory. And around this area here, this is it's a seasonal pond. We don't know if it's a vernal pool or anything yet. When I was flagging this, it was, you know, late. I think it was November-ish. Yeah, November. I didn't see anything. I was out here recently. There was still a foot of snow here when everything else was gone, but it was still here. I didn't see any activity as far as vernal pools in this area, but this is definitely a ponded area. In November, it was dry, and it's full of boulders. It looks like this area was filled in. Whatever kind of work they did up in here there's a well out here, and there's an access road that goes to this well that obviously serviced this factory, and they did some work in here. That's been manipulated a little bit, so we don't really know. We haven't been out yet to do a formal vernal pool study, but this is the time of year, so we'll be out there looking, if not the end of this week, then beginning of next week, to see what's in there.
Do we have any other, Susan?
Well, it shows the existing duplex.
Yep.
Is that going to stay, or is there going to be something else built? Is that coming down, or?
Right now, the plan is to renovate that. It's in, you know, right now it definitely needs a little TLC, but the plan is to renovate it for that
Okay.
lot. Yep.
Because that actually sits in the 100-foot setback.
It does. Yep.
So, I mean,
But that's, you know, it's existing.
right, it
yeah.
is existing, but I'm just thinking if you're going to do a
Yep.
master, going to take it down, or you're going to do some kind of add-on to it.
Yeah, I think the plan right now is to renovate in the same footprint.
Okay.
There is room, just gonna try to get to that sheet here. So this is it right here. Of course, it's not colored in, but I have this colored.
Yeah.
So that's the existing house right now, and, you know, the driveway comes in here, so there's still, it's possible, there's still room in here if, you know, again, the owner hasn't indicated that he wanted to, you know, relocate anything, but there's still room outside of, this is the buffer here. Kind of goes through the half of it, so, you know, there's still, all these other, the 4K area, things like that, basically meet all the requirements, so that probably could be pulled forward and outside of that buffer. I mean, right now it's, I think the well is in the back, and this is a lawn area that's cleared. So that's something that's certainly a possibility. As far as the barn goes, he does want to maintain it. It's a fairly sturdy structure. It's a steel frame, with a heavy-duty concrete foundation. I think it's been, I'm not sure if it's rented out right now, but I know in the past, I think a woodworker was kind of running the shop out of there, and some minor commercial usage. So he's wants to kind of maintain it as far as, I would think a barn, just as a barn usage, if someone wanted to have animals there or something, or storage for a tractor or equipment like that, but it's pretty substantial cost would be to tear that down. So that's not the plan right now.
Okay, well, I can see on that lot also, then there's a septic tank, which you talked about removing, I guess, or relocating.
Yeah.
And it's behind, so does that service the barn, or does that service the
So-
duplex?
Yep, yes. There's really, the stuff under the barn, I'm not really sure about, just because there's no plans, obviously, exactly what's in there. I wasn't in there poking around looking at plumbing or anything, but there is a, let's see where it is. So, I'm using green again, but right here is what appears to be a leach field. And this is the barn, and here's the house. And it appears that there's a tank right in this area here. It comes from the house, and I suspect that something probably comes from the barn into that tank also. And then this basically pipes down to what certainly appears to be a leach field there.
So what it says is septic tank
Yeah.
on the
Right.
plans,
It's out
but you're
there.
saying
Yeah,
that's
there's another little structure here. I think it's a D-box, a distribution box for the leach field. It's a good-sized leach field. I'm guessing it probably had commercial usage as whatever the feather factory was in the water. I'm sure they used a fair amount of water just based on the size of this well structure. I don't know if anybody's been out there and seen that, but it's pretty funky. There's like an underground, I don't know what I would call it. It's almost like a bunker, like a concrete bunker down there where the well is, and there's a storage tank in there. So it's probably so they had to use a certain volume of water in a short amount of time. So I think there's a storage tank there, and then whatever they were using, they had to use a lot of water at once. There's some other kind of strange drains in the building, in the barn. I couldn't really see down at the bottom, and with my phone light, I wasn't going down there to see. But it's unique, for sure.
Call us.
So Chris, you piqued my interest with a feather.
Yeah.
DHR, did they turn up anything historical? I mean, I don't know how many feather factories there are in New Hampshire, but.
I'm not sure. I don't think we filed with them. Typically, we do when we have wetlands, impacts kind
Yep.
of triggers that.
Yep.
But I suspect we can file even without that trigger and see what comes up. But-
Just curious.
Yeah, it's not like you're looking at an old foundation that you want to
Yeah.
save or anything. It's kind of it's weird.
David?
So, correct me if I'm not understanding this, but, so lot 10-10-3 would include the existing barn, lot 10-10-2, the existing duplex,
Yep.
but both the duplex and the barn are going into the same septic system, tank and leach field that's on 10-10-3?
Well, right now they are.
Right
That
now,
would not
so-
continue.
Right,
Yeah.
obviously it couldn't if they become individual lots, so then
Right.
my question was, is there, where could a septic system be put on 10-10-2?
So 10-10-2, the 4K area is right in front here. Kind of just, if you're facing the house, just to the right of it. So the house is No, I need a different color, but house is there, and the 4K test pits were here. We did another test pit right in front as well.
Okay, yeah, I see that now on the other page.
So then another question would be if, because it looks like you have plans here for a house on 10-10-3, and then you're saying also that they would continue to rent out the barn.
Well, I didn't say that. I think the barn would stay, right? It has had a rental component before, but
So it'll become part of that
Yes.
property and the people can use it. But then where, so are you planning on tapping into the existing leach field for the house?
No.
Or are you gonna have a different,
A
whole
new-
different,
yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Then,
And that's
does
back
that,
here. That's back.
does that have to get approved, again, the old leach field and the septic system? Or is it grandfathered and you assume it's okay? Is it gonna impact any of the?
Only if they're putting it to a different use or
It's gonna
increasing
be,
A different,
flows to it, they'd have to go back.
so you're saying if it were a feather factory and then it becomes a barn with cattle,
Yeah.
then it'll have to go through a different,
Well, if it's, how old is the septic system? I mean, does it have a permit? Do you know?
I'm sure it doesn't.
Does it? Okay.
We're-
So-
There's
so we
no,
don't-
there's
so we
no
don't even
plans
know.
to use that. Yeah,
Okay,
so they don't plan on using?
no.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere it said that.
Does it have a
Somewhere in
note
this-
to that effect?
anybody else have, Susan?
So you're gonna install new septics on both lots?
Right.
Oh, yeah, it
Correct.
does, says, existing leach field and septic tank proposed to be abandoned and left in
Right.
place.
Right.
Okay, I guess I have a question because notes, under notes on the first page, it said the state subdivision approval for proposed lots 10-10-2 and 10-10-3 is pending. Is there something we should know about why it's pending for the
Sure.
state?
Yep, so those are the only lots that are less than 5 acres, which require the state subdivision approval. The other 2 lots are over 5 acres and wouldn't require state subdivision approval for those. So we haven't filed for the state approval yet because we typically wait until the town has a chance to look at it in case they want to change the lot, lines a little bit or move something, so that when we do file, it's the final plan.
And that would be a condition of approval if they get the state subdivision.
Any other questions?
Yes. So I have questions about 10-10-4. First of all, it shows, and I realize these are all hypothetical houses because it's not actual plans,
Yep.
but it shows a driveway coming into a garage. And then it shows a proposed 4-foot walkway to a house that's set further back. Which, as far as housing design and all that, sounds quite lovely to me. However, and this isn't really a conservation issue, but what would the fire department think of that if the driveway doesn't go up to the house?
Well, I mean, this turnaround is based on the fire department's requirements that were provided to us, so they do have a
That
turnaround
turnaround.
here. I don't think, this is not a far enough distance it's gonna be an issue for them, so,
Okay,
yeah,
We'll learn more about that tomorrow night.
yeah.
yeah.
So this is, just so you know, the owner is planning on this being his home on this lot, on 10-10-4, for whatever it matters, but,
That's probably why it looks nicest.
yeah.
And then my other question with that lot was, can you tell us about the proposed bioretention basin that's shown
So-
to the right of the house, up towards the top of the lot? What's
Yeah,
that all
so-
about?
I mean, it's basically, with a stone berm and a level spreader, so essentially this is a vegetated, shallow swale, basically to pick up, any type of runoff, stormwater runoff is channeled through here through again, a vegetated swale with some stone check dams, that's what these little oval things are. And
Okay,
then it infiltrates into this area, so it's basically a small, shallow infiltration basin.
so it's the drainage coming off the driveways?
Yes. Yep.
Any other questions? Jane?
I'm just trying, I'm still on 10-10-4, and I'm looking at where is there's an existing woods road,
Yep.
and then you've got the lot line setback, and then you've got some amount of distance to make a driveway.
Yeah.
Correct? So that isn't going to encroach on the wetland setback or the property line setback?
No, I mean, the existing woods road is here, which does go through the wetland setback. We've relocated it basically so that we avoid that. I mean,
Okay.
initially, he wanted to utilize that road bed, that old woods road, to basically get out here, but obviously we want to try to avoid that wetland setback, and so that's why I was positioned over in this area.
Okay,
So, okay.
thank you.
Anyone else?
So this isn't really a question, but an observation. Some of the other documents in the packet were for the various easements: roadway easement, pedestrian access easement, cistern easement. Looks like you got a little cut and paste error here,
Okay.
because this first paragraph under cistern easement was apparently used for roadway and pedestrian access, because if you actually read them, the text, it says a cistern easement for the roadway easement
Okay.
and a cistern easement for the pedestrian access, so just wanted to point that out to you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
So,
Always more.
David, you must be familiar with, this is a drumlin that this, or,
Yes, there are drumlins that border that, the prime wetland that's back behind there that looks kind of like a big tooth, like a molar.
okay,
The roots of it. The reason for that is there's 3 glacial drumlins that are one on each side and one in the middle, and then the one on the side is the steep hill that's coming on the eastern side of this property. That's also a glacial drumlin.
Okay. So, you make a recommendation to the planning board?
oh, well, before we go on that, I'm just curious, so who, when you have an open space like this, and at this point, is it, and the town does not walk the boundaries and make sure that, you know, is it the people that live it that then have, are to make sure that it's stays open space, or that it's not being encroached?
Also in this packet is a draft copy
Yeah.
of a warranty deed to deed the open space to the PLC.
PLC.
Okay,
And that would give the
So
oversight.
PLC would, this is a warranty deed in fee, so they would own the land. And they would do all the stewardship and because they would own it.
Is that his intent for them to own the land, or is he's
No,
not
it's my
doing
understanding that is the intent, yes.
for them to own the land? So the owner, because sometimes in an open space, everyone in it also owns it and they have an easement, but his intent is to deed it to the PLC.
I think so. I wasn't privy to some of the early on conversations, but
Is the deed already?
my feeling is that the town would prefer that.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
it would be preferable. And
Right.
It's similar to what was done
Blackbriar,
Blackbriar,
yeah.
which then became the nucleus for the whole Black Brook. And so my next question was about that. I read through the proposed deed, and that seems to be up to snuff in terms of, you know, limiting the restrictions and the allowed usages, and it's, you know, up to the standards of what we would expect.
but it would
My
be,
question is, has the PLC seen this? I would assume they have, but are they,
I do not know the answer to that question.
I don't believe they have.
because I hadn't heard anything from PLC. and
well, that would
I know
actually,
they had been contacted earlier in the process before.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what it's
obviously
for
they
law.
have to agree to
Yeah.
take it, so.
I was gonna say that, I
If
think would
they-
be one of
If they
our,
didn't want it for some reason or whatever, we'd obviously come up with an alternative.
Okay.
but I think that would be one of our conservation's our concerns, is that it be looked at and approved, you know, we want to know what PLC thinks about this, and, yeah, and so I mean, it would be preferable if PLC would then take over ownership of that, and then that is open to the
Well,
public.
it abuts other PLC land.
Yeah.
So it's right
Well,
there.
easement land, not.
Easement.
Okay,
not the
easement.
PLC
Okay.
owns land.
Yeah,
But,
so it would be,
So that's this,
yeah.
is this the easement on this side?
Yes.
Over here?
So would that would make it more
Yeah, that's the act.
amenable for PLC to add this to their other property?
Yeah, the easement land.
Yes, okay. I guess my comment would be for, if we're recommending to the planning board,
Just there.
that
This is the next lot.
this applicant secure some
Forget
sort
about
of
this, we're just talking about this.
affirmation from PLC that they are in fact going to take this deed.
I would say before they approve this, frankly.
You should make a
Yeah.
motion.
Yes, why don't you make a motion, that,
Whenever you do your motions to recommend.
We don't need a motion.
we don't need one?
No,
Well,
it's
no.
just a recommendation.
Yeah, but you should make a motion to recommend to the
I
planning
make a
board.
motion to recommend to the planning board that the owner secure the approval from
PLC.
PLC to accept the deed for this open space.
Second.
Second, okay.
Any other,
Any other
Yeah,
comments
things
to
you wanna
add to
pass?
this, though?
Yeah, just,
I was gonna,
does anybody have any other questions or concerns with the whole rest of the proposal? Aside
to
from
add
that?
to this,
Just throwing the question out, not.
Yeah.
okay. I guess.
the placards, do you want them to, but I mean, if
Marcus,
PLC
they
owns.
said PLC will do markers, won't they?
Well, I don't know if they will, but
But
you were
they-
asking him before, do you want to
Markers.
recommend
Yeah.
that the open,
So,
Open space be marked, have plaques.
yes.
Boundary markers, something. yeah.
Normally, we request that, but any PLC property
I was
will
gonna say
have
they have
markers
their own,
all
don't
the way
they?
around the
so we
perimeter.
don't, they don't need
So
to
I
do
don't
that.
think it would really be
No, they would have their own. right?
required. I mean, good, any even an easement,
They put
PLC
them
has
on.
markers all the way
Okay,
around.
and that way it's not like they have to come
Right.
back, we have to look at the placards as PLC.
No, it's, that would
Okay.
absolutely,
Okay,
every
so we don't
property
need to
they
do
We don't
own
need
or
anything
on an
else,
easement
is-
on is very well marked,
Okay.
sometimes excessively
Yeah,
marked.
call.
David, maybe you can help me out on this. I'm not familiar with this language. On page 4, item D, it says there should be no general posting to prohibit the public from accessing and using the open space, but said grantee shall have the right to post the open space. And can
I'm
you-
sorry, what,
It's on
page
page
4
4,
of
item-
the deed?
Yes, item D, which is about halfway
There should be no
down.
general posting to prohibit the public from accessing and using the open space. But said grantee shall have the right to post the open space and otherwise put the labels all around saying this is,
But he doesn't have the right to post the access. Is that trying to differentiate between accessing the open space and the open space? So-
Well, you know why? Because the proposed pedestrian access is is not, see, they had to have frontage. That's why this came to 60 feet, and they're asking for a waiver for the reduced frontage, because they can't create a landlocked piece of property. So over here, on the opposite side, they're proposing a pedestrian access that's going through someone else's lot. So that's probably why.
no, actually, it's right below here, it's the paragraph below I, or 1. But said grantee shall have the right to post the open space, and they have a semicolon, maybe a colon would be more appropriate. I, or 1, as may be necessary or desirable in the sole discretion of the grantee to protect certain portions of the open space or to protect all the portions of the open space during certain periods of a day, month, or year. So for example, if a wetland has a great blue heron rookery in it, you may want to close that off during the nesting season.
Right.
Or, or maybe if there's a real sensitive vernal pool and there's trail heading right straight towards it, you might want to close that during the spring season temporarily. So I think that's
That's,
But is
what
that
that's all
determined
about.
by PLC?
Well, they would be the owners
They
and
would be
they
the
would
Okay.
manage the
owners, right.
stewards, yes.
okay, so,
But in the document, then the next part writes to enforce the town of Goffstown, its successors or assigns And any owner or owners of the land abutting the space shall have the rights but not the obligation to enforce the terms of this instrument, shall have reasonable access to the open space and all its parts for such inspection as necessary. I liked this particular clause because it's kind of the same terminology and intent that we would put in an executory interest. We don't have an executory interest because we don't need one here, because we only do that when the town is spending money, to help purchase an easement or something like that, which obviously we're not doing in this case. But the same sort of oversight by the town is written into this, which I think is good. So that's why I was curious who wrote it, whether it was PLC or whether they worked at the planning department or.
I suspect that someone probably reached out to PLC and said, do you have a sample document that we can look at? And
Yeah. And we have really great people in our planning department.
And Joanne Maya sent it too from Blackbriar when they had it. That we could have been asked for like samples of stuff and they could, I'm not aware if they went to Joanne or they went to PLC, but we have the Blackbriar woods. She could have gave that as an example.
Well, it seems to be well done, so kudos for that.
So, we have a motion.
Yeah, to recommend that they secure approval from the PLC for the ownership of the open space.
And it's been seconded, so all those in favor?
And did we get the vernal pool survey?
And,
And,
nope, you want to add that?
yeah,
And
Yeah.
so what do you want me to write? So you wanted to confirm if that's a vernal pool?
I just want to do a vernal pool survey
Vernal
of
pool.
the property in general, find out.
Oh,
Vernal
yeah,
pool
you mentioned it.
survey,
That
You
or
mentioned
others.
it.
Survey be conducted.
Right,
Be conducted.
now's the time.
right. They are peeping away out there.
Okay.
Anything else we need to add to this motion?
There was also a report from Heritage Bureau hadn't come back
Yeah.
yet as
The
well.
report.
I mean, on all the forms it says pending, so
Heritage.
I don't know, maybe that means it was applied for and the state hasn't replied back yet, or
That's possible.
pending the, yeah, either possible.
Either way, we'll get an answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else to add to this? All set? All those in favor now?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes,
thanks a
Oh, it
lot.
doesn't vote.
Yeah.
I know. We are going to pass this
It's an
on.
awkward situation.
Okay, next we would just,
They each feel that they're gonna
Do you want to do the other plan that I brought in, or do you want to do that later?
I can do the other plan. These two plans?
Yeah.
Okay, we have.
Now, you want to save these, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, the planning board's plans.
Okay.
So I added, because it came after, and it's going, is a 2-lot subdivision on Field Street, map 14, lot 68. It's not on the agenda, it's owned by Force here. It came in after I sent out the packets, but I wanted to make you aware of it because as part of technical review, used to look at plans like this. But they're subdividing their lot into 2 lots.
Is this
And
it?
Yeah, the second one below. I don't see any wetlands issue, it's on sewer and water, it's on Ivy and Hill Street. Meets all the zoning requirements, there's existing house and one.
They just want to subdivide these two.
Yeah,
Does anybody see any issues with it?
I'm trying to figure out where it is. It's over here in,
it's in Penarville.
I know, but it's off of St. A's Drive.
Yeah,
Thank you, it
Yeah.
was a great presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for-
I mean, the owner said he'd like to do a duplex on the new lot, I don't know if that, that's just what he stated, whether that will be, anything beyond that would have to get site plan anyways.
Right.
But it could be a single family or,
Does anybody have any
Duplex.
issues? No. Does anybody want to
mean,
make a motion?
Given its location, I don't
It's
see
on,
any issues of environmental concern.
Right. There you go. Want to second that?
Second.
Susan seconds. All those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Abstaining? Okay, that was smart. Yeah, look at these two done at the same time.
yeah.
So actually, I'm just
Okay.
curious. I guess I'm just curious, not about this, but when you're going down, What is that, St. A's Drive? And there's a brand new, if you, on Shirley Hill, and then it goes, I was just curious, is that one lot? Do you know what I'm talking about?
The
new
one
thing
across
that's
from like
being-
almost St. A's?
Yeah,
Yeah, that, you saw it, it is one lot. It
And-
was a subdivision where they're creating a new house lot.
wow.
We saw it
It's like
before.
right in there. I mean, and it's quite imposing too. You know, there's a little house, but that is, so I mean, I'm wondering if we're gonna be seeing more of that kind of, dividing up lots. This is another one.
I don't know, this one, Glenn, you could, because there are some lots that lend, that are
Pretty-
bigger, that,
And it is a suburban.
Yeah.
they're on sewer and water.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I just,
Question.
this went too fast. I'm sorry. Is this lot flat?
It looked like it was flat.
Yeah, I would say so.
Flat, right?
I mean, there's no.
You might have asked for a
Isn't it?
waiver well, he says topography subdivision, right here, he's not showing any,
No, she wasn't showing anything.
no.
And the reason I say that is because right across from St. A's, heading down towards Mast Road,
It's a hill.
it's pretty steep. And in my previous time as a conservation commissioner, we had a lot of complaints of water going down into
The next
the area
person.
of Desaulniers Street and some of those other streets. So I'm just wondering if this is flat or if it's gonna have more runoff.
Topography, he may have asked for a waiver of topography. The little application.
Doesn't show any of the,
But he's not showing existing conditions.
I mean,
Because it's not a build-out, so you're not seeing if he's moving a lot of earth or anything to.
No.
but as soon as you put an impervious surface, another one, you get more runoff.
Rebuilding, building it.
So you make a comment about,
To the planning board, make sure they
The planning board,
consider
yeah.
that.
Thank you.
consider the drainage,
Yeah, the runoff.
Yeah.
from the new
Consider-
Runoff,
lot.
yeah,
consider
that's good.
drainage.
Yeah.
It's accommodated appropriately.
from
Thank you.
the lot.
You don't need it,
No.
don't, because they're gonna get that back, I think.
Who's
And
gonna-
I believe Scott from
You-
DPW,
make
the
a
town
plan.
engineer, will look at the drainage and stuff.
Yeah.
That's paid, like,
Topographic
make sure drainage is
subdivision.
properly treated from
But
the
it doesn't say anything about
Okay.
where the water goes.
Milfoil. Okay,
I don't know.
milfoil, Nasca, we already made a,
Yeah.
you have it, the initial, and then they seem to be taken care of, and,
Do you want me to?
yeah,
Okay, so I gave you some information about the milfoil, and the copies of our budget. The budget did pass with a reduced amount to $13,500. We already paid $1,750 to Nemaski for what they put down for the treatment of the milfoil. In the meantime, we did ask Manchester if they would be willing to contribute towards the cost that they needed, because they were requesting $7,050, and the city of Manchester has agreed to contribute $5,300 towards the milfoil in Nemaski Lake. So that has come in.
Thank you.
they're taken care of then, Nemaski.
Well, in my opinion, they've got enough, and because our budget got reduced, and we have, the Glen Lake and the, Mill Pond area requesting an amount too.
Right,
And that, we have a new area that was added to it, I think
Right.
we should look at that more. A lot of times these come in, but they don't actually use the amount they're requesting.
This is-
And then sometimes they do, so the Goffstown Waterways, which is the Glen Lake area and the Mill Pond area upstream towards New Boston, their local cost they're requesting is $9,495. I don't know if we could do all that and with the budget, because you don't want to short your own budget too much.
no,
Mm-mm.
So I think we should vote to tell Namaski we aren't contributing more than what we've already did. If that's, up to the board, if that's something you would like to do.
So,
And then we need to decide on an amount for the Goffstown Waterways, who are asking for $9,495 to be committed.
okay, so that's two different motions. One will have a motion to,
Well,
Namaski has been,
I gotta get these numbers in my head.
Yeah,
So
I-
who's asking, Maskey's asking for how much?
They were asking for a local contribution of $7,050, and we already gave them $1,750 because they already put it down
And
on
then
their
they-
contract,
and
so
so-
we reimburse
and
them.
then they got 5,000 from.
$5,300
So-
from the city of
So
Manchester.
they're all set. We don't have to take anything out of the budget for them. So it's
It doesn't-
waterways, we have to
Okay.
decide how much we're gonna.
And so Waterways is asking for how much?
9,495.
$1,495, and we have what available?
Our total budget was $13,500. So you deduct the $1,750. I can't predict the cost of minutes mailing. You also do your, the
No, I-
conservation dues.
I thought we had a certain portion of the budget that was reserved for milfoil, not,
It got,
They put it
put it
together.
right into the operating budget.
well, then we should definitely be backing out what we would need for things other than milfoil and say that
You know,
that's
But
the
you have
number
a
we have to
copy
work
or
with.
the history.
Yeah,
Here's another question though. If the dam is, all the dams are going to be,
we don't do Milford anymore.
Well, let's not go
But-
down that path just yet.
okay.
No,
We gotta resolve this
We have to
discussion
wait on
first.
that.
But I wondered how it's going to affect,
Well,
Yeah.
obviously it'd make a big difference.
yes,
That's
but
not-
anyway, okay.
We'll have to get through
One
this
thing at a
year.
time.
All right.
Jane,
All
Wow.
right, I'm looking at this to see what we actually spent.
well, that's what happens.
And so in 2022, is that what we actually spent, was 5,292?
On,
Conservation Commission expenses? Special
Yeah.
article milfoil, it's all blanks.
We didn't spend anything on water, last year. They
beyond the
didn't-
Glen Lake, we did not.
They didn't need-
Namaski's was the $3,550.
Right,
Okay, in 2022.
right,
Yeah.
And then the year before that, it was 1,250.
right.
Okay, so, but that's just Namaski Lake. And then Glen Lake, we actually spent in 2020, 16,000?
We've been spending a lot.
Wow. Okay, so we don't have that much.
No.
No, but we're in better
It got
shape than we
reduced.
were then,
You, the budget
because,
committee cut it, didn't
Yeah, we cut it ourselves because it was
We've been
going
cutting
down,
it.
and then the budget committee cut it
they?
again.
Cut it.
Okay, but if they're asking, you said the Glen Lake was asking for 9,000? And we have previously spent
yeah,
a lot more than 9,000. But if we take 9,000 out of this, we have almost nothing left.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think we can
so
commit
a
that
couple
full
of
amount.
observations. First of all, it's different every year.
yeah,
Yes,
Because a real successful retreatment one year may mean you don't need to do much the
right. And
following
last year
year.
they didn't have to do anything.
Yeah, last year it was like
Mhm.
essentially nothing because treatments previous were so well done.
okay,
But there's also other areas other than, we're calling it Glen Lake. But for that portion, we also include the mill pond.
Yeah.
And there are some infestations that are upstream in the river
In the
above
river.
the mill pond that
Have never been
have
treated.
never been treated and they're just getting worse and worse. And of course, they're just
sending
Continue
it down
to-
the
So
river.
what
Feeding
we
the
want to do
rest
is
of the river.
appropriate X number of dollars, be sure that it starts in Glen Lake, because we haven't let that get out of control again. And then
Well,
move up as
upstream.
far as we can to
Yeah.
the mill pond. And if we have more money, we'll go up the river. Does that
Well,
make sense?
Well,
mean,
that's
it-
included in that amount, the treatment
Right.
of,
It better
We
be going
added it.
upriver because it's going to feed the rest of it.
Right.
right.
I would think you'd start up there.
Well, we don't want to lose what we already gained Glen Lake.
You're right, but
Okay.
that line, I mean, you can go all the way up to Deering.
Well, yes.
Well, what I'm trying to say is the amount that Glen Lake is asking for is including,
It included in that.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
probably why it's a little, it's more than it was last year,
Okay.
is because we're now going to the area that
So
wasn't
what do
treated.
you think we
We
should
added that to
appropriate
it.
for that?
Well, first of all, we have to look at what our total budget is, for the whole conservation.
And she gave.
Try to have an
you-
intelligent estimate of what
11,750.
the
What we
postage, and all that costs, the NHACC membership and all that costs, the things that we usually pay for. Let's set the things we usually pay for and have to pay for aside.
Well, it says we actually spent $5,292 for Conservation Commission expenses in 2022.
Right.
And so, I don't know what the Conservation Commission expenses would be, besides the membership, the mailings,
Is
the
it
Minutes.
minutes, the
Yeah.
damn fees.
There are damn fees.
We do also have the budget, she did submit me the budget where it currently is at the end of March, which was 11,433.
Okay.
So that's where our budget is as of, I think, March 31st.
Well, would it be prudent to set aside the 5,000, set aside 5,000 out of what's left for other things? And then use the remaining 7,000 roughly
For the milfoil.
for the milfoil?
That's a,
Yeah.
yeah.
That would make, yeah, we should be able to do it on 5,000.
Well, so year-to-date expended is 2,066.60, but that includes the 1,750 that went to Nemaski,
Right.
correct?
Yes.
Because we've
Right.
never should have lumped all this stuff together.
Yeah, they did, they put it in the operating budget.
Yeah,
So
that
why don't we
was-
put the 5,000 aside for our expenses, and then what we have, we'll
Well,
use
50,
for
it's
the
almost
waterways.
53.
I mean, I think that total expenses included with the milfoil, because it was so low. They didn't, like, it was, I think it was like, whatever, the 3,000 that we did, and then our total that we expended.
Mhm.
I mean, it was low, and the dues are like just under 1,000, so you know that.
Dues, does that include the dam dues,
Damn fees?
dam fees, or
No,
No, we don't.
no, that's just,
just, right,
You're talking about the
membership fee?
NHACC dues?
Yeah, the Conservation Commission dues.
So just round to 1K for that.
Yeah,
And how much annually do we spend on the postage
Minutes and,
and
it
minutes?
depends on how, yeah.
Because
She
I don't think
gives
those
us the history
packages
of
are.
that.
We had suggested that we could pick them up at the office. I mean, if there's a huge packet,
Yeah, and they weren't big to mail out, I mean,
Well, we have two charges here for minutes. One's 52 and the other one was 78. I'm not sure what the difference, and the third one is 26. That makes it even more confusing. Why do we have these three wildly different numbers? Trying to figure out how much we spend a month.
well,
so do you wanna set, you're saying you wanna set aside $5,000 for our own expenses?
expenses, and then
7,000
for the milfoil.
for the milfoil. And I'm rounding because I don't think we
And
have
in
quite that much left.
Which
because-
is saying-
Well, I'm
I
saying
agree
if
with
you-
that. I just want to make sure that the 5,000 is enough.
well, that's what, here
I
it says
think it
Well, I'm going,
5,300
It should be enough.
basically,
I'm taking the current budget and I'm deducting
Yeah,
6,000, and it was 5,000, the 433.40. So you could have 5,400 set aside for the budget if you want to commit 6,000.
Well, I think that
But you're saying, Patty,
Because
that
there's
this
another
5,000,
thing that in your packet of the budget, because it was requested that I get the budget for, when you talk about the open space. So she gave me one that has the operating budget right here. And this is 11, that's where I'm getting 11,433.
Right.
yeah, but you're saying that on this Conservation Commission expenses for 2022, it was actual, that 5,292 included the 3,550 for the milfoil. So
I-
if that's true, then we only spent about $2,000 for minutes and mailing and
Must have
fees.
been more than
It
that.
was, no, it wasn't a lot for that. But yeah, we only, that's the amount we spent, like 3,550 for.
So 5,000
That's
should be
what
plenty.
we spent.
It'll be more than enough,
With that, no, that was for Nemaski Lake, the 3,550.
yeah. But is that added? It's a little, it's
I
a
know,
little
this is
tricky to
confusing
figure
reading
out, I'm
this.
sorry, but
It is, and I would
I hate
suggest
to-
that we,
I think in this, they were just showing us what we spent for, this one was just for the milfoil, that's what I'm reading it. Because our budget our budget before was 20,000. And we weren't spending even half of it.
So it's cut it. And then they cut it.
I mean, the years before, there was a big
Okay.
treatments, they were being spent, and then it slowly came down, and then last year,
There's no treatment.
there was no treatment to, we had committed money that we didn't spend.
I understand that. I'm just trying to understand how much our essential expenses are
For the commission.
for the commission.
Right,
And,
not
I mean,
milfoil.
and Jean saying 5,000 is more than enough?
I think 5,000 would be enough, because at one point, didn't you have only 3,000?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
And then that's what they added, the milfoil,
that was how many years ago?
yeah.
Okay, well,
So I would suggest we be conservative on setting aside our essential part. If we allocate a number now, and then later in the year, perhaps we could allocate more to the milfoil if we could afford it and it was needed. Or does that cause other problems?
Well, because then they go and they commit to
they
it,
commit to it.
and then we're supposed to reimburse them.
You're saying the people that come in to treat it. we
Treat it,
commit
they
to
have
them.
to, yeah, they have to have an idea of what they're doing.
Right.
Jane?
I'm going to make a motion that we commit $6,000 to milfoil treatment, and the residue of our assigned budget, it's not 13.5, it's some other number, whatever that residue is that we keep for our expenses.
$5,433.50.
Okay.
40 cents, excuse me.
So commit the 6K to
Milfoil.
Goffstown Waterways, so you've already,
We've already taken,
Nothing.
we've already committed to them.
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's reasonable. And then the 5,000 for, because, I mean, if there's an issue with minutes, I'm sure there's
Yeah. that's
somewhere
not
they
a
can
big-
pull it from.
No big deal.
Do you agree, Collis?
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the word came down from the select board when we were preparing the townwide budget. You need to tighten your belts and look for places to cut. So we thought we'd be the good guys and step up and say, okay, we'll cut our budget. And of course, went to the budget committee and said, thank you very much, we're gonna cut it some more. So,
Well, that's what happened here, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happened here.
Yeah.
exactly,
No good deed ever goes unpunished.
right, exactly.
Okay, just motion to commit 6,000 towards Goffstown Waterways, and the remainder stays in the operating budget for conservation expenses.
Okay.
Okay,
Do we need a vote on that?
yeah, second,
I
we need a
made-
second.
I made the
Jane
motion,
made the
okay.
motion.
Yeah.
We need a
And
second on it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
Good.
We have corrections and acceptance of the minutes. Anybody have corrections or? Anybody want to make a motion?
Did we,
I'll make a motion to approve both sets of minutes, the public minutes and the non-public minutes.
I only have one correction to the non-public is to remove Amy's name
Oh, that's
on the
right.
vote,
That's
which
right.
I already did it, but just to formally vote to remove on the non-public minutes.
Right.
which That was a cut and paste error.
Okay. Do we second that? Everyone? All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Abstaining? No, okay. I think the only thing we have maybe on the agenda is, we have an application for a member to the Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
Did we let him
William.
know we're meeting tonight? Did we let him know, William coming?
I did not let him know. I didn't
Maybe he
invite
should
him.
come to a meeting before
Well,
we,
that's what I was wondering, if you got people.
so why don't we
Invite him to the
invite him
next
to our
meeting.
next meeting and
Next.
go from there. Okay? And I think we have a request for our recommendation to the selectmen. David?
Yeah, so then that's the first question is, has the official request from the select board come to us to make the recommendation for proceeding on the Clark Ridge project? I was at the select board Monday night and asked that.
No. If she
Okay.
did it, she did it after 4. But that's okay. We can,
We can still do the vote, and we're just,
yeah.
we're just
I
ahead
do it all
of
the
the
time
memo.
for planning board.
Well, I figured it would be okay, but,
Yeah.
so let me first of all just bring everybody up to date. So in your packet, you've got some documents about the project. And first of all, I just want to let everybody know that there was some confusion and things that needed to be cleared up, but all is good now. Everything's been sorted out, so I want everybody to know that.
Okay, that's good to hear.
So we're talking about a easement that covers 7 lots. Map 10, Lot 3, Map 10, 3-1, Map 11, Lots 1, 1-3, 1-4, 1-5, 1-6. You got me very conscientious about this now, Patty. I neglected to say that in an email.
Yes, what lots are these?
So anyway, there's really three intentions, three major goals in this project. First of all, with all these lots, there's so many lots because one portion of it was a previously subdivided field approved by the planning board of residential lots, and having the chance to capture that back and conserve it instead, which is really, really good news because that field is prime farmland soil. And prime farmland soil in
Right for
Goffstown
development.
is, yeah, but we have a lot of open fields, but not all fields are prime farmland soil. They're not that, again, it's sitting on top of a, hate to say it, drumlin, but those are usually really good soil because they're, they're built on top of 100 feet of sediment as opposed to being weathered out from the bedrock like so many other parts of town. So the total, and they're acquiring those fields, well, they've completed it, they've already acquired it in February. The King family has purchased it. So it's not going to be developed, otherwise it was going to development. So the three things that we're accomplishing with this project is, first of all, and you can see it when you look at the topo map, which is the final image. You can see where the drumlins occur, and this big one on the side was what was being referred to in the project we were talking about earlier. That's actually at least above this line that's on that property. And so this big wetland here, this is one of our designated prime wetlands. And in the prime wetlands report, it was listed as being one of the highest in terms of wildlife habitat value. So that's kind of cool. And then, of course, saving the working farmland, because this is a working farm. And by saving these fields from development, that'll continue to preserve that working agricultural field. It's a hay field. And also, although not a big emphasis was made on it, the drainage that comes out of those fields comes down into the wetland system shown outside the boundaries. That's actually feeding down into Stinson Road Marsh, another prime wetland. So, all these systems are all connected. And then the third, so we're preserving the prime wetland and buffering it. We are preserving working farmland fields and farmland soils. And the third thing we're doing is actually helping to conserve the viewshed of the general John Stark Scenic Byway. Because in Goffstown, I don't think anybody would argue this is the most scenic part of the general John Stark Scenic Byway. It's absolutely gorgeous. In fact, I'm gonna say it's the best part of the entire John Stark Scenic Byway. I defy anybody in Ware or New Boston to argue with me on that. So that's three major goals. In terms of the budget, which is of dear interest to us, there's a sheet on that listing it. The total value, I mean, the actual total value of this project is close to $1 million. It's like $924,590. The sale of the easement has been discounted by, as a bargain sale, by $325,000. And so it's quite generous on behalf of the King family. But also to be clear that by doing this and by selling the easement makes it possible to acquire those agricultural fields, which were going to be sold for $500,000 to a developer. Offer was already on the table. So it was really snatched from the jaws of defeat. So all the various expenses are listed, and there's a lot of things because we're going for so many different funding sources. The more funding sources you go for, the more requirements have to be met. You know, like with the ARM grant, you've got to really have solid documentation of the wetlands and their performance and all that. So there's wetland assessments, environmental surveys, and baseline documentation, and so on. You can see it all listed there. So the actual easement purchase price is $525,000, but by the time you add in all these other expenses, it comes up to $599,590. That's the total cost of the project. That's, yeah, essentially $75,000 in transaction costs. And out of all of that, on the revenue side, there was an LCHIP grant was received of $200,000, an ARM grant of $270,000, Merrimack Conservation Partners $20,000, Moose Plate grant $24,000, private foundations $30,000, other local private donations $55.90, which leaves $50,000 that we will be contributing from our conservation fund.
Have we voted that?
No, we have to hold a hearing for that
Right,
yet.
okay. Oh, a hearing,
But,
okay.
But, you know, we're putting in
That's great.
$50,000 for essentially $600,000 cost project.
Right.
That's the kind of leverage we want to see. I wish they were always this good.
Good job,
That's
Dave.
great, wow.
Well,
How long
thank you,
is
but
this?
PLC really should get most of the credit here because they did the
Well,
work.
thank you, PLC.
Yeah. David, how long has this project, been in the works? I mean, I know it's been
I think it just started like October or November of '21.
It's not as long as some of them.
yeah, some of them, yeah, well, that's great.
But it was really, last spring was when things really got rolling, and then, it always takes a minimum of a year with the grant cycles and funding cycles and all that, so. I don't think it's been, on average, longer than a typical project.
No.
No, now, when does it, you have the public hearing, is that what you have for this?
Well, so first thing we'll do is, I'll just make a motion. I move that we recommend to the select board that the executory interest be acquired on this property through the 4114A process. So that they, again, because they'll be asking both us and planning for recommendations to proceed with that.
What was the RSA?
Second.
I'll second it.
Oh, it's 14, you probably better double check this. 4114A.
A.
Now that I've said it, now I'm beginning to doubt my own.
All right, I'll double check.
And Susan
Seconded it. Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
And then
One more thing. don't you?
tomorrow night I'll be going to the planning board and talking to them about this as well and asking them for their recommendation also to go back to the select board. And then all continues to proceed. The select board hearings will start actually in June, like the first week of June, because there's complications in the schedule due to holidays and the requirements in that process. I mean, they're so weird, you know, it's like this hearing must be separate from that hearing by no less than 10 days, no more than 14 days. And it puts constraints and makes the scheduling a little difficult because there's 2 select board hearings and then a further week has to transpire before they can actually vote. I never understood that part, but that's what the law says, so that's the formula we have
Takes
to
them that
follow.
long to think on it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, isn't that what it's for, Carlos? Time to think?
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's their hearing, and then we have to have the hearing of our own to expend the $50,000 to contribute towards that. So I would like to propose that we do that at our next May meeting, which is May 24th. And I had written up some language for the public notice, which Patty also included here. So I move we hold a public hearing. How much do I have to say on that?
Next
In
meeting.
May 24th,
Well,
17.
we'll put a
Yeah,
second
I
on that.
propose we hold the public hearing for the Clark Ridge Conservation Project on May 24th, 2023 at 7 p.m.
Okay, need a second on that?
Yeah.
All those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
I think Susan was at she seconded the,
The first
that was
one.
the first one.
The
This
first
the
one,
second
and
one,
this is
right,
the second.
okay.
That was the second one.
Okay.
There's been 2. Okay, okay, you got it right, Dave? Got
Yeah.
everything?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
Needed those
That's
two
great.
votes.
So I guess that's, we need a motion to adjourn.
no.
No,
Oh,
I
I
don't
wanted
think
to
so.
ask about the dam.
Oh, the dam.
And then
I was
this
just saying-
Honorable Chris Sununu letter.
Yes, okay, Carlos, you're on for
What
the
would you-
dams.
Oh,
So I passed out
So,
a memo from our planner and a letter that went to the governor regarding the proposal
Oh, no, he's got
to
it. That one.
no longer maintain the Hadley Falls Dam.
Oh,
Just-
I'm sorry, what's gonna happen if they drop, so we're talking about this dam down here at Glen Lake,
Yeah,
and then we have the dam at the conservation dam, like, that's up on the
No, we have the
Uncounted.
dam here
no,
in
that's the
town.
reservoir,
We
That's
have
the
the one at
reservoir.
Craig down by Namaski, on the bridge.
Yep.
Did you
Kelly-
see?
the one that's being proposed right now is Hadley Falls.
right.
It's in Manchester, I think.
It's been
Oh, no,
mentioned
it's in
that's-
Goffstown, but it's,
Slated later is the Gregg Falls and the Kelly Falls.
But when we talk about dams, it's not the reservoir, there's a dam at Mountain Base Pond.
That has nothing to do with
Has
that.
nothing to
Okay.
do with that.
Okay, all
Now,
right.
this is the
This is
one.
to do the one along the
these are
Piscataqua
big, these are big
River.
dams.
These are
Okay.
all dams on the river.
Okay,
Yeah.
tell us about this.
Well, it's a long story, but the long and the short of it is, there are several hundred dams that the state licenses and regulates through the Dam Bureau at DES. They are all in various states of disrepair. They're all ranging in age from 50 years to 300 years, some of them. And they're all failing. And so whoever owns the dam is responsible for the maintenance of the dam. And so when DES does periodic inspections, and if they find deficiencies in the dam for whatever reason, construction, operation, whatever it may be, they will issue an order to the owner of the dam saying, here's what you need to do. You need to bring it up to today's standards. That's option 1. Option 2 is you need to breach it, get rid of the dam, remove the hazard. It's tough, I'll tell you, because like I say, there's hundreds of them in the state. And there's not a lot of funding sources to remove these things. So, like I say, the options are fix it or breach it. There recently, about 5 years ago, Exeter breached their dam, took their dam out that was right, this is kind of similar to Exeter. It was right in the center of town. similar to ours, had recreational aspects to it, had some commercial industrial properties along it, so it's kind of very similar. Although they had much more commercial and industrial than we have here. So, you know, when it's first proposed, the sky is falling, you know, everything, we're all doomed. Which isn't necessarily the case, because there's two schools of thought. The impoundment, like I say, provides certain amenities. However, returning it to what they call run of the river, when the dam's removed, provides another set of opportunities, as the fishermen and the kayakers and the canoers will tell you. If you have open stretches of river, there's more opportunity for the fish to migrate upstream and whatnot, and then there's opportunities for, like I say, recreational boaters, kayakers,
Well, I'm
canoers.
just curious, I'm assuming that the people that live along these lakes are paying
Big taxes,
their taxes, so then that is all going to be,
gone.
and I would think that these people are gonna be very, very upset. Do they get noticed before any of this happens, or?
Oh, yeah,
it
they'll
just-
get noticed, and it'll be publicly noticed, and there will be listening sessions, and there will be a listening session for the removal of the Hadley Falls Dam. This is the one that creates the impoundment for the regatta, right in the
Yeah,
center of
I think
town, at the bridge.
They'll be gone, right?
That'll be gone.
Collis, do you have a sense of the scale of the cost? What are we talking about here, that the owner of the Hadley Falls Dam would have to expend?
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm just wondering if there were some sort of a public effort, if people wanted to keep that
Right.
impoundment, but they'd have to know what sort of money they'd have to raise if there was a public effort.
So there was, it's more than $1 million, I'll tell you that right now. It's a big number.
It's gonna be,
It's a big number. This is expensive work. And it has to be brought up to current engineering standards. I mean, they just can't stick their finger in the dike and say, hey, we're good now. No, they gotta look at it from A to Z and fix all the deficiencies and bring it up to current engineering design standards. Expensive, very expensive. And the owner of the project who's developing the Mills Falls, I forget what it's called, Mill Falls Residential
Because
Area.
that originally was going to be a
Yeah.
green, you know, and that they were going to use the energy from the dam to then supply electricity and that for
Yeah.
this,
Right.
that. And I
Well-
think they had to get their permit through the federal government, and,
FERC, yeah.
but that's.
But, so they did all that analysis, and first of all, it's a pretty small dam, so even if it was in good shape, it doesn't generate a whole lot of electricity, even if it was repaired to its, you know, original condition. So it's hard to make the numbers work financially. And the owner of, who's developing the Mill Falls project, had been looking for, I think he said 12 years, to try and get somebody to help him finance it. And there's just nobody out there that's gonna take it on, because the numbers don't work. It's a losing proposition. The repair costs are so high, and the amount of electricity that you generate, the revenue it generates is so low, that nobody's interested. And that's what it comes down to. As it always does, it comes down to money, right? And the numbers don't work.
Boy,
now, doesn't
So-
Glen Lake, do they use that for energy? It's one-
Yeah, that's the big dam.
The big
the
dam.
big dam.
Oh, yeah, they generate
But
electricity
that's gonna
there.
go too.
Well, you know, they're, all three of them, there's that, and then there's Kelly Falls, which is the one down,
Yeah, that
Manchester
has
line.
electricity too, right?
it did at one time, I don't think it generates
Okay.
much anymore.
The operator no longer is not gonna
Yeah.
renew his license to
That's
operate.
what happens, is it goes to FERC, FERC says, by the way, your license is up, you need to renew your license, and they're like, nah, what's that mean? Well, you're gonna have to fix it, you're gonna have to come up with this, that, and the other. It's really, really expensive.
So you're saying all 3 dams are
It's like,
proposed
Well,
to?
no, I'm not gonna say that, because right now, it's only the Hadley Falls that's under consideration, that's what this letter's about.
Yeah,
Hadley
they're
Falls.
just looking at the other two.
But
But,
there's another piece to this that I think we're not really talking about, and that is there's the potential for bigger rainstorms, more impactful runoff and bigger rainstorms, more powerful storms, And we've seen, I'm just thinking in the last 10 years, we've had more than a few 100-year storms in a 10-year span. So that piece of the picture is these dams have to be made up to standard because there's the risk to human life
Right.
and property if they fail. And I think there's a lot of potential there.
You have to be able to withstand the forces,
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
And this was
As far as
reclassified
storage
by-
retention, they don't have
Yeah,
any possible.
So Hadley Falls was reclassified by the state as a high hazard dam, because if it does go, it's gonna cause property damage and possible loss of life, because if you know, there's a house that sits right at the dam.
Right.
And if that dam were to go, that house is going, essentially. So it was reclassified as a high hazard dam.
That's the
So
first
that
dam here.
cranks it up to, okay, now you really need to do something about it. You know, it's our infrastructure's aging. I mean, these are old dams. Like I say, there's hundreds around the state, so
Well, I was
everybody's
thinking-
clamoring for whatever money they can find.
Wow.
And that's even limited.
Yeah, but well, I understand what you're saying.
It's a crumbling, I mean, you know, it's a dam that needs repair, and the standards for repair have been raised up because of
No, I
the
do understand,
statistics
but I'm
are
also
coming
saying
at
it's going to
us.
have a
Yeah.
huge impact on the whole state because all of these little riverways, you know, I mean, that's where the Industrial Revolution
Yeah.
started, and they've had communities develop around there, and, wow.
But they did the Black Brook.
Yep.
There was a
Bridge that
pond over there, I forget what the name of it was, but Black Brook, right before it gets into
Yeah.
Manchester, there was a pond there, and they took that dam out.
That dam out, yep.
And I think they rerouted the water to go below the falls. But in any case, that one went away, and there was a lot of dissent at first, and now
Yep.
it revegetated in, there's lots of good mucky soil there, things grew like crazy.
Well, I know, the Newfound Lake, they took the dams out there, they had a couple dams that were then holding, you know, supporting the lake, and people were very upset when it went, but then it's,
Yeah, you hear talk about the crumbling infrastructure in our country, and dams are right up there high on the list because the threat they pose to loss of life.
well, I have to say, when the fellow came in and did the presentation for the restoring the dams of our reservoir, I mean, those were in absolutely atrocious, you know, shape too, and it's amazing that they just, so,
And that's a little one.
yeah, but it would have had a huge impact but we had to take care of it. But I guess what's interesting is that, so none of these towns, or they're owned privately, these dams are just,
Well, a lot of them are owned by the state.
so the state is gonna take care of those dams?
Well,
They're going to-
no, because the
No,
assistant,
What state do you live in?
Yeah, right.
They're taking them down,
the
that's how
assistant
they're
commissioner
taking,
from DES, Mark Sanders.
taking care of it.
Was at the meeting, and he was rather frank. He said, "I got bad news for you, you're not gonna wanna hear it, but the dams are gonna come out." And everybody was like, "What? Whoa,
Just,
you're just dropping a bomb on us like that?" And, Yep,
said all of them,
yep, well, no,
not,
this was just this one.
oh, okay.
But, I mean, you didn't have to read too much between the lines to see that it's not the only dam that's got problems in Goffstown or in the state of New Hampshire. And eventually, they're all gonna have to be addressed, so.
But if they generated enough electricity to be an actual source, a viable
Right.
source,
Yep.
then it would be financially worthwhile for someone to fix
Somebody
it.
would step in.
Somebody would step in.
But like I say, the developers of the apartments down in Mill Falls, they looked for 12, I think it was 12 years. Maybe it was 16. It was a long time. It was multiple years. And they just could not find anybody. In fact, they had one buyer who was very, very close, but, you know, like I say, the numbers just fell apart at the 11th hour. What are you gonna do?
So this is supposed to happen soon?
No, this will take years. Yeah. We'll still have a pumpkin regatta for at least a couple
For
months.
years?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, how's that?
So many people that, you know, they first hear about it, and everybody's assuming like, oh my God, it's gonna be gone in a month or two, or, you know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's
it
like, nothing ever happens that fast. I mean, come on.
But I'm
Takes
just
years.
thinking also the tax revenue for the town is going to be.
Well, and I brought it up at the meeting, now, my big concern is the economic impact on Goffstown, because
Yeah.
the pumpkin regatta, pumpkin weekend, those businesses, the small businesses downtown, and they testified to this, they make more money on that one weekend than they make all the rest of the year combined. So this is that regatta is their budget. If the dam goes away and the regatta is no more, you've got all these little shops, these little,
Yeah.
that have opened up on Main Street and have helped to revitalize Main Street. I mean, you read the handwriting on the wall, you lose the regatta, you lose tens of thousands of people coming to town for that one weekend and spending money. You may see businesses closing up. I mean, that's gonna be the reality of it, I'm afraid. That's my opinion.
But imagine the hue and cry if the dam lets go and people die.
Yeah, well, that's for certain.
And, you know, we'd
Yep.
all be looking pretty
Yeah.
bad that way too.
And then you stop and you think about, before the Glen Lake Dam was built, there was all those cottages and the small homes along Elm Street used to be down on the river.
I
And they
know.
moved them all up all up slope so they could build the dam and create the impoundment.
Right.
That's why
Now they're
they're,
gonna have to all go
that's
back
why they're
down.
so close to the
Okay,
road.
they're gonna have big backyards now.
Yeah, that's why they.
Yeah.
Those were actually moved, I just always assumed they were built
That's
there for
what I-
cottages
yeah.
A lot of
on
them
the
were
water.
moved, not all, but a lot of them were moved up.
But
That's what it-
on the
yes.
Elm Street side, the trolley went. So a lot of those houses have a little strip in their backyard that's the trolley that went up to Uncanonic.
Okay, now that we have
Okay.
the
Well, and
latest,
Yeah, I'll put you in
like
a
I
good
said,
mood.
it'll take years, whatever happens, it'll take years.
it'll take years.
But-
It might not.
But also, if that becomes the inevitable result, then people should start thinking and planning about, well, maybe there's other opportunities. I
What's
mean, all these places where dams were located, they were built where there was once beautiful waterfalls.
Oh, yeah, well.
You know, what could that be the centerpiece of?
And
We could do the same as
fishing
Franklin.
and,
Franklin, you could have
Queen's
kayaks, you
kayaking.
could have
Yeah,
Sure.
whitewater
Queen's
kayaks.
Acres.
Franklin is a great example of,
Yeah.
you know, they had their dam removed, they've turned it into an enormous asset.
Yeah.
Not that we would have the prospect of doing that, but
In Exeter, which was, they just took theirs out, I think it was about 5 years ago, maybe it's 6 years ago. It was the same thing, the original knee-jerk reaction was, oh my God, the sky's falling, what on earth are we ever gonna do?
yeah.
You know what, you go to Exeter now and it's remade itself, it's, you know, and it's really beautiful.
Well, we'll have to see.
Yep,
Goffstown Falls.
Goffstown Falls.
Goffstown Falls. So we have a motion to adjourn,
So move.
second? Jane, all those in favor?
Yep.
Opposed? Okay.
My blood sugar's down.